Welcome to the Mind by Design podcast. Today I am interviewing Polly Fry, who is an educational therapist, and her practice is Kaleidoscope Educational Therapy. Enjoy our conversation.
Hello.
Hi, Polly. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm Jana. Nice to meet you officially.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me record this. Back in 2012, sorry, I have a dog.
Oh, I just put my dog down.
Oh, yeah. He comes sometimes and, oh, no, you can't have that. Nope, that's not for you. He comes sometimes and he is sometimes quite annoying. But back in 2020, I started networking with people virtually because it was when I actually started my private practice by myself instead of working at a clinic. And in 2020, we were just doing everything virtually, but I started to record the networking meetings that I had because I felt like if I were learning about different clinicians in the area who did different things, it was good for me to have it kind of like on record, because we do mostly assessment and a little bit of intervention work at my practice. And even with the intervention work that we do, sometimes we're not the right fit for everybody. And so I really feel like I need to know clinicians in the area, specialists who do different things, and know like who they're looking for, like who they feel like they can serve, who's the best fit for them, so that I can, look at what's going on in the evaluation and make a good match. And then, it's hard sometimes for parents to reach out to people for help, right? Even if we do make the recommendation. And so then I can be like, well, I think Polly would be a really good fit for you. Why don't you, take a listen or just look at our video, and it helps them like feel a sense of connection, even though they haven't necessarily met you yet. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah. So I feel like everybody can benefit. So thank you for letting me do this. So I'll ask you a bunch of questions about you, and then I can shut off the recording and tell you all about me.
Okay.
So I know you because I feel like we have shared clients, or like I feel like I have tested clients who have gone to you, or I have had kids who were seeing you who came to me. I cannot remember who specifically, but I know your name, and I think you used to work for a clinic in the area, right?
Yes.
And then so you have recently gone out on your own, and I didn't know that, but I found out from another specialist who I was like looking for reading intervention for a little girl. And I was like, well, who, like if you're full, like who else, is really good? And they said, oh, why don't you try Polly? And I was like, oh, I had no idea she started her own practice. So yeah, I'm interested to hear just kind of how that transition went and what you're doing now.
Sure. So I started learning about dyslexia and educational therapy through my children. Typical story.
Yeah.
So I have two kids who both have dyslexia, and at the time I worked with educational therapists, and it really made a big difference in my daughter's life in terms of her confidence and her ability to just learn. Like she said, it was like the light bulb went off, like someone understands my mind, and, yes, I can learn this stuff. I just need it presented to me in a different way. So at that point, I really valued what the educational therapists were doing. And so I decided to go back to school. So I got my master's degree and a credential in educational therapy. And then started, and of course, this was a little bit during COVID.
Yeah.
Which was a little hard. So then I worked for a group that had people who do assessments, other educational therapists, and see a pretty wide range of different people. And I worked there for about 2.5, almost 3 years, and then decided it's time to just start my own business. So some of it was, I have a nice place here that I can make into an actual home office, and I can provide a little bit more customized solutions for these kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than just sort of relying on what that group was using.
Right. Got it. So thank you. And so are you primarily doing reading intervention, like literacy intervention?
So I do reading, writing, like writing composition and math.
Oh,
So
okay.
I do all three of those. My focus is on kids in like first through sixth grade.
Okay.
I get a few first graders, but mostly a lot of people start in second or third,
Yeah.
which is when they've been compensating along and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, like there are too many new words and I can't memorize all these and I can't decode these.
Mm.
So I see a lot coming more in third and fourth grade.
Yeah.
So I've been trained in a lot of structured literacy approaches based on Orton-Gillingham. So like the Wilson reading system and Lindamood-Bell and Barton Reading. And then for math, I predominantly just use Making Math Real. And that sort of visual representation approach has really worked with a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And then sort of after they kind of graduate to me reading, writing is sort of the next step. And so I tend to work with some of those kids as well on writing, where we're looking actually at like taking notes from something, putting it into an outline, putting it back into their own words, and how do we do that with both fiction and nonfiction?
Yeah, that's great. And how often do you see your students? Do you do like a once a week for most of them? Or, I mean, that's one of the difficulties I feel like I have just when we provide intervention is like how frequent, right? Number one, can they do it? Or how much time do you have available? Or how many subjects do they need you to cover? Is once a week enough? Is twice a week too expensive? There's so many variables.
Yeah, usually the variable is their schedule, right? Because they have sports and music and all that.
Yeah.
So most of my students come twice a week.
Okay.
For a 50-minute session within an hour block. So I have time to talk to the parent and prepare a little and play games. We like to play games at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on their schedule, they may just come once a week, or depending on sort of the level of intervention that they need. For math, sometimes they can just come once a week, but usually for reading and writing, they need at least twice a week to get those concepts through and to progress at a good rate. So if they're only coming once a week, it just means it's going to take longer to get through.
Right.
So if you want progress, you probably have to come twice a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
So
yeah, I've seen.
And I even work on Fridays, so
good for you.
Just go on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're doing most of your work, if not all of your work, in person then at your place?
Yes. Yes, I prefer in person. If there's an issue, I can switch to Zoom, but it takes like a different kind of preparation to do that. So I like in person where I actually sit like right next to the student, and so we can look at the same thing, we can talk about it, right? You get that like one-to-one, just personal interaction, right?
Yeah. And so if you're working from Orton-Gillingham based intervention techniques, are you just kind of pulling what you think the kids need, or do you kind of go, okay, you would be good with Wilson, so let's do that? Or are you like kind of individualizing across, you know what I mean?
So it is very individualized, which is why it makes it nice that it's just one-on-one, right? You and the student. So I predominantly kind of go with a Wilson maybe structure.
Yeah.
And then I pull from other things because each kid is different. They relate to things differently. So I do like to have a lot of manipulatives or things that the child is doing, right? Are they highlighting? Are they sorting things? Are they seeing what the concept is themselves?
Mm-hmm.
So if they can kind of get that picture in their head of what they're trying to do, that makes a big difference. So I tend to pull from a lot of things, and I'm continually learning, right? Continually finding things that are great.
Yep. That's the nice thing about this field, is that there are always new things. And I love an individualized approach, just because I know that there are a lot of really great programs out there, but I also know that not everything works for every kid, even if it is Orton-Gillingham based, right? Like I want things to be, individualized. Not that running like a straight Wilson or straight Barton program wouldn't be great for some kids. I'm sure it would. I just kind of look for, like, how do people look at a student and try to decide, or like, if something's not working in a program, like, is that just it? Or can you do something different to kind of get around?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it all depends on how they process information, right? Is it visual processing? Is it auditory processing? And so some of those kind of very standard scripted programs might work, but you don't have all the background knowledge behind that you get with like an actual educational therapist, right? Who's studied that.
Right. Exactly. Do you, like, if I have done an evaluation or someone on my team has done an evaluation, do you, is that information helpful to you? And are
Oh,
you
yes.
into collaboration? Because we are. We're in this, and I'm sure you know this from working at a place that does testing, is like, if we do the evaluation and we send, we say, well, here are some people who I think would be a good match for you to go get some reading support. Sometimes that person reaches out to us and is like, great, let's connect, so that we can really talk about it. And we want to, we want to make a really smooth transition, because it's not just even like the test scores or, how they did on the tests, but when we write up our evaluation, it's hard, right? It's hard to capture every little nuance, but it's, if we can talk about it, we find that we can like translate what we were seeing in a more just kind of interactive, communicative kind of way if we're having a conversation. So we love that. So if we do ever work with kids who have come through our doors and go through yours, like, we would love to collaborate. How do you feel
Sure.
that? Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think that would be great. So the assessment process really does give a better overview of what's kind of happening, as well as, there might be some other underlying issues with attention or anxiety, things like that will come to the surface. So it's really great to get that whole picture, and then we can sort of prioritize, right? What kind of needs the most remediation, and kind of where should we get started, I guess, is also some of that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's nice when the results or the test results can sort of show, right, is it an issue with phonemic isolation, right? Or is it more comprehension, or is it that they are like writing so hard, right, that their hand hurts? I mean, those sorts of things, right, can come out. So yes, I would love to send some of my students to get a full actual assessment, so that we can address sort of all of the issues that might be going on.
Yeah. I've been in the field a long time, and I feel like just the field in general has come so far about really understanding dyslexia. Like, the longer I've been in the field, the more I try to hone our evaluations, or and I work with my staff to really try to get more nitty gritty about where the problems are, not just, you seem to have a phonemic awareness issue, so you have dyslexia, right? It's more like, well, where is the breakdown in their process? And how is that affecting, like, the phonemic part, the orthographic part, the comprehension piece, the fluency, like, what is actually going on there and why, so that we can help, even spelling patterns, like, what kinds of spelling errors are they making? So that we can give the interventionist who works with them more information that's going to help them figure out where to start their intervention, because we might not get to talk to the person who ends up helping them. You know, we hope that we do, but we don't always get to. And so we are trying to get into those details with our evaluations. Yeah. So okay, so 1st through 6th grade, mostly about 2nd or 3rd through 6th, but you're more like the elementary grades is for you. Yeah. And are you like a full clinician with a wait list? You know, like what, I mean, obviously this could be an evergreen, you know, discussion, but what's your, you know, right now, what's your wait list like, or do you have openings? I know you kind of just started, but you might already be full.
Yeah. So I like officially started in January.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have some students, and then for the most part, you're referred by those parents for other people in their class or the lower grades. And so I have gotten several referrals that have come in. So right now I have one opening, depending on what their schedule is. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm already full.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, because they're, you know, people estimate, right, it can be between 10 to 20% of the population, right, has dyslexia and needs just a different approach.
Yeah.
Right? So I love when schools start taking Wilson Foundations, because I think that can be used for any child, right? Yep. And it does give a good foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was growing up, I just knew my dad didn't spell very well. Like that was the diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
So it's still like the generations are still trying to catch up with that. But I think it's great to take and own the name dyslexia, right? Yeah. So it's not necessarily, you know, a problem with reading, which I know is like the literal translation. But a lot of people with dyslexia, right? I mean, their brain is just wired different, and they use just a less efficient channel. Yep. to get to reading. But they tend to be very creative, right? And they look outside the box, and they tend to be, you know, the entrepreneurs, right? And the people that just see things a little bit different. And it's fun to work with those kids.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I love how you use that analogy, because I always talk about like roads that are under construction. You know, it's like taking 280 when there's no traffic versus, you know, trying to get from Campbell to Willow Glen, not on the freeway, you know, like, or yeah. on the side streets. And, you know, you get there, but it's not as efficient. It doesn't go as quickly. You know, there might be some bumps along the way. Yeah. And your brain's trying to like pull from other things to like get yourself there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any, well, how do people find you? Because you have a nice new website.
Yes. So my company is Kaleidoscope Educational Therapy. So the kaleidoscope is representing that kind of shift and change in thinking, both about yourself and how you're learning. So that was the impetus for the name. So they can email me at info@kaleidoscopeet.com. So there will be double E's in that, or find the website.
Awesome. Well, I'll put this up and, you know, wherever I post it so that people could easily find you and I guess get on your wait list.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And it's always changing, right? But yeah, especially like in the second half of the school year, it's like the big push for everybody's always really busy. So that's great that you got going so quick.
Yeah.
But not surprised.
Well, and the thing is, you really want to help the people who are really struggling, right? So, you know, I'm not here to help someone get an A in their class, right? Or just take an additional practice doing what they're already doing in class, right? So that's where a tutor really does come in handy, right? So it's someone who can do that same sort of classwork, where I think of myself more as kind of building the foundation so that they can do their homework, right?
Yep.
So not actually helping with the homework, but building that foundational skills and filling in all the gaps, right? So that they're able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an educational therapist, but I also have a tutor at my practice. So I just have like, so yeah, like my tutor is really more for the kids who don't need something very specific, but if they do need something that's really more foundational and specific, and we've got a target here, that's not, that's not for her, though kids do need that, so some kids need that and some kids need you. So,
yeah, no, that's a nice blend, right? And that they can learn from each other and great. Okay.
Well, is there anything that you think that is important about your practice that I haven't asked you?
So I'd say the only other thing is with educational therapy, right? The name therapy in there, right, does sort of denote that we're looking at kind of the social, emotional well-being of the child too. So, so a lot of these kids come in, right, and particularly if they're in 3rd or 4th grade, they know that they're not doing the same as their friends, right? And they start to, say things like, "Well, I'm just dumb," right? And they either act out or do avoidance tactics, right, to get out of things that are hard for them. So, so in addition to just doing the academics, right? I mean, we work on building more confidence and resilience, and how do you approach this problem? Like, what's sort of the first thing you can do? And if that doesn't work, then what is plan B? And it's so fun to see, like, even just little things that kids like learn, and they're like, I know more than the teacher. And they get so much confidence, right, from some little thing, right? Like knowing whether to use C or K in spelling, and that empowers them to want to learn more and to develop more of their confidence and be able to empower them to kind of self-advocate.
Yeah. I love that. And do you go into schools at all, like any of the private schools, during the school day, or are you primarily working after school?
So I primarily work after school. I also can work with kids who are homeschooled. So I don't necessarily want to travel to a school, but I'm available during the daytime for homeschooled
Got it.
students.
Yeah, that's helpful. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for letting me record and interview you.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure hearing about your practice.
Yeah, this was fun.
Good. Awesome.